Gary Parrish, welcome back to CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting. Dodo Birds and Leaky Black Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button like you're Brandon Davies. You have consented. Don't forget, while you're here, to also subscribe to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel. Let's get into it. If you listen, I hope you did. If you listen to Sunday's episode of the Eye on College Basketball Podcast, right toward the end, my buddy Deadleg there, he said, what do you think we're going to be talking about on Wednesday morning's episode? And I said, Houston's on the road against an unranked but quality opponent. Purdue's on the road against an unranked but quality opponent. In fairness, I also said Duke's on the road against a unranked but quality opponent. Yeah. I think we're going to be talking about one of those three teams losing. Two of them lost. Duke wasn't one of them. Purdue was in Pinnacle Bank. You know what happened there. Houston was at Hilton Coliseum. That's called Hilton Magic. Neither won. Both lost. Final score, Nebraska 88, Purdue 72, Iowa State 57, Houston 53. Dead leg. Number one went down. Number two went down. Makes sense of what we watched last night.
That one's on me. I was wrong.
They didn't walk right in. Purdue did not walk right into Pinnacle Bank.
Cole, I've been trying to tell you for years. It's like sometimes I think you don't even listen.
I was wrong on that one. Boy, was I ever wrong.
Sometimes I don't even think you listen.
What do you want from me here?
I've been for years telling you don't just walk in Pinnacle Bank. Did it take?
It's starting to change. It's starting to change. You ready for this doozy here? This is Nebraska's notes. I'm going to take Nebraska at its word here. This is a wild stat. Nebraska is now 19-6 in its last 25 games, dating back to February 1st, 2022. That's the best winning percentage by a Big Ten team in that stretch. It's 1 percentage point better than Purdue, which is 22-7 percentage-wise, 7.59. Win percentage, Nebraska's 7.60. So Nebraska, since February 1 of 2022, is 19-6. Crazy, GP. Fred Hoiberg has it going, man. And on Tuesday night, it was the fourth win ever for Nebraska over number one team. The first time since it did it since 1982. And now sitting at 13-3, it's the best 16-game start for Nebraska since 1990-91 when they started 15-1. It also had 13-3 starts previously in 2010-11, 94 and 95 as well. So the losing teams are, I guess, the bigger story, but to me, the bigger takeaway, frankly, is Nebraska getting itself into position to be a relevant Big Ten team and potentially an NCAA tournament team. I mean, Keisei Tominaga was outstanding last night, and he hit 5 3-pointers. He's averaging more than 21 points a game over his last 3 games and is really coming on. And I said this on HQ on Tuesday night. If you follow Big Ten hoops or you're a diehard, like, he's not someone out of nowhere. He was expected to be potentially a top 5 kind of player, certainly a top 10 player in the Big Ten this season. And he's showing up big in a big way there. Nebraska was just on fire. I guess, I'm kind of venturing into that. So we'll get to Houston being the last undefeated to fall in just a second here. But to me, the Cornhuskers dropping 14 threes on Purdue's head and shooting a season best 51% and, hitting up Purdue for 88 points and just being ready for the moment, man. Like, CJ Wilcher was terrific off the bench. Thought it was a really important win for Nebraska. Maybe an important win for drama in the Big Ten. I'm still not going to step away from Purdue. My thought that Purdue is on a tier to itself in the Big Ten, with Purdue having lost on the road to Northwestern and Nebraska, who, by the way, may turn out to be tournament teams. There will certainly probably be some people that are going to push back against that. But on balance, Purdue has still displayed itself to be one of the 3 best teams in the country this season. And I think one of the bigger challenges sometimes for some who have to write about and talk about the sport is when you have a morning after or a night of a result like this, to kind of remove yourself from that and take a wider look at the big picture. Purdue has now lost 5 times in the past 375 days as the number one team, which is weirdly impressive. It keeps getting to number one, and yes, losing once it's number one, but it keeps getting back to that perch. And so this was the 5th time in basically less than 13 months Purdue has lost as number one team in college basketball. I still think it'll be fine. Big time win, major result for the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Yeah, I still think Purdue wins the Big Ten by multiple games. But I mean, all jokes aside, all Pinnacle Bank jokes aside, I just think that I don't care where you're ranked in this particular season. When you go on the road against an NCAA tournament caliber team, and the place is going to be packed and rocking the way that place was going to be, you're susceptible to getting beat. You go back and listen. I didn't predict that Purdue would lose. I just predicted that, there's a series of games against, big brands and highly ranked teams against unranked teams, and any of the three are capable of getting got. Obviously, Duke had no problems at Pitt. We can touch on that a little bit later if you want. But Houston was in a fight from the jump, down 14-0, and same thing with Purdue. Now we're in year 5 of the Fred Hoiberg era. I said this last night on CBS Sports Network. I always assumed Fred at Nebraska would work just because I think he's really, really good. And, year 1, it was 14th in the Big Ten. Year 2, 14th in the Big Ten. Year 3, 13th in the Big Ten. Year 4, 11th in the Big Ten. And I remember us talking about it. I wondered if, the recipe that Fred used at Iowa State, he was about, 5-10 years ahead of his time. Maybe more than that, in the sense that he was the one going out and getting transfers and sitting them out and then using them to build a great teams at Iowa State. I remember talking to him one time, and he had a really good grasp of the situation. He was like, my fans expect me to compete with Kansas and Texas and the other top tier teams in the Big 12, but I can't recruit high school prospects the way that they can. Like, I'm not going to be able to go heads up and get 5-star guys for the most part against the Kansas, Texas, and those caliber of programs. So where can I get similar talent? And that was through the transfer portal. You'd often have to have them sit out a year, but that's how he got that thing rocking and rolling. My point is this. Then he goes to the Bulls. By the time he gets back to college basketball, everybody's taking transfers. And so his advantage that he had identified and really flourished in that space, it was a space that a lot of other people were trying to flourish in as well. So that advantage was not non-existent, but not nearly as exaggerated as it once was. And you start to wonder, is this going to be one of those deals where, man, it made sense on paper, but I guess it just never got going. Chris Mack at Louisville is one of those. Ben Howland at Mississippi State is one of those. And perhaps this can be the breakout year, because I don't think last night was just, that was that night that Nebraska beat Purdue, but it didn't amount to anything. Like, that looks like an NCAA tournament team to me. At this point, I'm expecting them to be in it.
We'll see. I wouldn't say expecting. They're 13-3. Last night was Nebraska's first win over a surefire NCAA tournament team. It does have a win over Michigan State, but Michigan State right now is 9-6, and you cannot call Michigan State a surefire NCAA tournament team, not when it's got to turn around tomorrow night and play at Illinois and could be standing at 9-7. It also has a win over Kansas State, which is a quality team. It's 12-3. But Kansas State, to this point, I would lean toward it getting there. But again, I'm using the term surefire. Now Nebraska's got to turn around and play a road game against Iowa and then a road game against Rutgers. So, don't go from 13-3 and 13-5, although that would be reasonable if it happened. A couple of road games, if it can split that and then get some work done at home, it's going to have a chance. Obviously, a very significant win. It will be interesting to see if we look up down the road and the likes of Northwestern, which is also a 3-loss team in the Big Ten, in Nebraska, are boosted by Purdue and having beaten them at home. Looking at the other one, and a couple of really good home venues in a part of the country that was, I think, inundated by snow. Certainly Ames was, and to an extent Lincoln was as well. It appeared that the Ames crowd was actually held back a little bit because of the weather there. But Houston going in and playing just. It was, GP, this was, to me, 57-53. You can look at the score and be like, If you watch the game, it was oddly riveting because these are two teams that just are not afraid to chin up and fight you. And Iowa State had to hold, after it got out to a 14-0 lead. Houston didn't score until, I think, 4 minutes and 55 seconds into the first half. Which I thought was the difference in the game. If it had been, a 9-5 Iowa State advantage in the first 4 minutes, I think Houston probably would have won, because Houston was kept pushing back, and it took the lead a couple of times late, but it could not overcome down the stretch. It's now the last team to lose, so there are no more unbeatens left in men's college basketball. I'll have a little bit something on the history of that in today's court report. I thought it was a significant win for Iowa State, not just because Houston was undefeated. Iowa State had not also defeated a surefire NCAA tournament team until Tuesday night. Its best win other than this was a home one against an Iowa team that I think needs to be hopeful that it can make the NIT this year. But other than that, Iowa State's most notable wins was against VCU on a neutral floor. At DePaul was its only road win, so it gets a key victory, and is now building toward an NCAA tournament type resume after having lost against Virginia Tech, Texas A&M, and then its most recent game was a road defeat, a respectable defeat, but a road defeat, all the same, GP, against Oklahoma. Houston, by the way, Houston, we're getting to these other games, but Houston, BYU, and Cincinnati, all newcomers to the Big 12. They all got a taste of some new medicine. They all fell in Big 12 play on Tuesday night. What was your primary takeaway from the Cyclones being able to hold off the Cougars?
Well, I don't know if you saw Kelvin Sampson's post game, but he said something along the lines of, "We just pissed ourselves."
we peed down our leg. That's correct. Yeah,
so,
yes.
It looked like they just weren't ready to play. I mean, evidence being that they were down 14-0. And listen, I'm not concerned with Houston at all. Like, if you told me right now, a GP, bet a significant amount of money, Houston's going to be a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, I'm like, yes, I'll take that. I do believe that. They're fine. But one thing you have to realize, and it's not Kelvin, because there was this big thing about, Houston's never been in the Big 12. Well, Kelvin has. He knows what this is. So it's not Kelvin as much as it's the player. In the AAC, you don't walk into that ever. Even at Memphis, it ain't quite that. And at Memphis, when it's good, is really good. But a more intimate setting, smaller building, just like Hilton is a place that we've been talking about for years. And if you're not ready to walk into that consistently, then you're going to have problems on the road, because it's not like you got to get up for that once a year now. You got to get up there for that at least once a week and maybe twice. Like Houston now has to go straight from that to TCU. What do you think that's going to look like this weekend? Similar.
Yeah.
And so you got to be ready for that every single night. You're not good enough anymore, even though they're great. You're now in a league where you can't just I'm not trying to be goofy, but like you can't just walk into places and get it out of there with wins. You got to show up.
No one's walking into anything.
Nobody's walking into anything anymore, unless maybe it's West Virginia.
Yeah, well, they might be walking into.
You might be able to walk into West Virginia, but you ain't walking out into really anything else in that league. Maybe a UCF, but we'll see. So, I think that was probably. I know Kelvin didn't want to lose that game and didn't want to lose it the way they lost it by missing every shot. LJ Cryer was not good the entire game, like not even close on his potential game-winning three-pointer. I mean, it was a bad performance all the way around. And so I know Kelvin didn't want that, but I bet you he can sure use it as a teaching lesson, and I suspect that he will. And when we look up this weekend, I don't know if Houston will win at TCU, but I bet they'll play. I bet they'll look different. I bet they won't be down 14-0. On Iowa State, you put some numbers on it. They hadn't, you said they hadn't beaten a surefire NCAA tournament team before last night. That's true. They had an interesting resume in the sense that, most people at this point in the season, 2 months in, like they've got some good stuff and they got some bad stuff. That's most people's resumes. Iowa State was like, you have no good stuff. They were 0-3 against the top 65 of the net and 11-0 against everybody else. So they had no really bad stuff.
They had a good net too. I don't know what it was, GP, but I feel like they were like 10th or 11th going into last night. Actually, I looked that up. Keep going. They had very strong computer numbers because they were just beating people's brains in, but like it broke down pretty cleanly. 0-3 against the top 65 of the net, 11-0 against everybody else. So they were one of those teams that, well, they hadn't really done anything bad, but they hadn't really done anything great either. Let's see where they are. And then they add like one of the greatest things you could add last night. I moved them into the top 25-1 because now they have a solid resume, a big signature win, and the computer numbers to support it. But before last night, they were still in search of something that said, no, this team really can do something more than just beat bad teams. They can beat, they can play with the best and beat the best in the Big 12. And that's what they did last night. I just thought it was,
You got the former Iowa State coach and the current Iowa State coach both having pretty wonderful nights last night. And I don't think those are one-offs. I think both those guys have good basketball teams this season.
Yeah, Iowa State was 12th in the net heading into Tuesday night's game. It's now 11th here on Wednesday morning. It had done that because it mutilated a number of quad 3 and quad 4 opponents, but it's got to build up the resume. The Big 12 is going to provide plenty of options, and I do expect Iowa State to get to the tournament. Seating wise, we'll see where that goes. But Altenberger has a formula there, and it's leading to reliable regular season success and a little bit of tournament success as well. But there's going to be ups and downs. Like not every Iowa State game is going to be a Rembrandt or even close to it. But the process does work here, and against Houston, it worked well. They came out, they were ready to play. With that being said, now, so we had number 1 Purdue go down, undefeated number 2 Houston lose. We speak here on a Wednesday morning in advance of Kansas playing at UCF. We'll see if they can walk in. Trivia time. Can you name UCF's home arena? There's no chance. No chance.
Oh,
I'm going to give you the acronym, and you'll get one of the letters in the acronym, and you still won't get it.
Okay.
The acronym is AFA.
Yeah, UCF, they play at the Air Force Academy.
Okay.
Don't they? UCF.
You can get one of the words. The second A is arena. Addition Financial Arena.
Yeah.
Addition Financial Arena. I mean,
that's what.
Is there a worse name and endorsement than Addition Financial Arena in the entire sport? My goodness.
Yeah, that's
no offense to Addition Financial. I'm sure you're doing some great business there, but
we need to get Mick Cronin in touch with Additional Financial, see if they can't get these NIL
now we're talking
situations fixed out of UCLA.
Exactly.
That point poverty program.
The point is Kansas is number 3 in the AP top 25 right now. We'll see if it can walk into Addition Financial Arena on Wednesday night. Because I was asked on HQ Tuesday night, all right, well, season ends right now. Who's your number 1? I said that, well, it has to be Kansas. Although weirdly enough, this was a mailbag question in today's court report. I was asked to explain why Kansas is so low in the metrics. So if you want to say Kansas should be number 1, there's something to that. However, how about this right now, GP, with Kansas? As of Wednesday morning, it's 13th at Evan Maya, 15th in the net, 16th at KenPom, 17th in BPI, and 18th at Torvik. This is a 13-1 Kansas team whose lone loss is a respectable one against Marquette and Maui, and is a school that obviously year over year is reliable. So even though, as we're just about done filtering out preseason priors here, you would think that it would have establishment here to clearly be in the top 10 of the metrics. That is not the case. So from a resume perspective, maybe you think Kansas should still be number 1 before it plays this game at UCF. But predictive metrics are not in on Kansas being, a surefire Final Four contender. We're halfway through the season here, and there are multiple mainstream predictive proven metrics that have them outside the top 15. I find that to be pretty intriguing. Part of this is because Eastern Illinois is terrible. Kansas won that game close. Indiana's not that good. Kansas didn't blow them out. But it is a little bit of an oddity to see such a proven commodity in Kansas not be higher up in the metrics. It'll get there if it continues to win in the Big 12, obviously, but at this point, it's definitely lower than I would have thought.
They have played closer, Kansas, than they should have had games with 3 sub-100 net teams. Missouri, Eastern Illinois. Yes, now Indiana is outside of the top 100 of the net. Mm-hmm. So that is why their that's among the reasons, at least, their computer numbers aren't terrific. But as I wrote in Wednesday morning's top 25 and 1, I'm more interested in results than I am efficiency numbers. And the results are still, I think, make it easy to move Kansas to number 1 in the top 25 and 1, which is what I did on Wednesday morning. They are, make sure I've got the numbers here, 13-1 overall. They've got 3 quadrant 1 wins, but like all quadrant 1 wins are not created equal. Their quadrant 1 wins are a neutral court win over Tennessee, a neutral court win over Kentucky, and a win at home over UConn. So they have wins right now over the teams ranked 4th, 5th, and 8th in the top 25 and 1. Those 3 teams are also all in the top 6 of the AP poll. The lone loss, like you mentioned, to a Marquette team that's in the top 15. So I'm going to set you up for a trivia time.
All right, hit me.
How many other teams in the country have 3 wins over teams ranked in the, let's call it, say, top 8 of the top 25 and 1, and 0 losses to teams ranked outside of the top 15?
Say it again.
How many teams, other than Kansas, have 3 wins over top 8, top 25 and 1 teams, and 0 losses to teams outside of the top 15?
The answer's got to be 0.
0. It rhymes with hero.
That was a little scratchy there.
That's all I can do. It's early in the morning, baby. I went to bed around 4:45. So, like, okay, the efficiency numbers aren't great, but they've got 3 massive wins and no bad losses. I moved them to number 1 in the top 25 and 1. You ready for this? Purdue is number 2 and Houston is number 3. I'm not dropping them that far. And I know that some fans who, I'll just say some fans, I know some fans will have an issue with that because they think every time you lose, you should drop a million spots. And every time somebody wins, they should move up a million spots. But if you look at Houston's resume, Purdue's resume, they're still better than anybody in the country, I think, not named Kansas. And arguably still better than Kansas, but I'm smart enough to know you can't just let Purdue lose at Pinnacle Bank and leave them at number 1. Like, fans just ain't going to go for that. So you start looking at resumes. I can justify Kansas over Purdue. I could justify Kansas over Houston. I can't really justify anybody else over either one of those teams. Can I hit you with just
hit me?
Let me give you one more.
Hit me.
Trivia time.
Okay, here we go.
Right now, Iowa State is not Iowa State. Right now, Purdue is 6-2 in quadrant 1, and Houston is 4-1 in quadrant 1.
Okay.
Trivia time.
Mm-hmm.
How many other teams are at least 3 games above 500 in quadrant 1 with 0 losses outside of quadrant 1?
How many? All right. Say it one more time.
Buddy, I'm pulling these numbers.
I mean, all right. So you want to know how many teams have not lost a game outside of quad 1 and have won at least 3 more than they've lost in quad 1? Is that
That's right? That's right. You got it, Deadleg.
Can you give me the number of teams? Unless it's 0, in which case, what are we doing here?
In which case, what are we doing here?
Is it 0?
It's 0.
It's 0?
It's only Purdue and Houston. They are the only teams in the country that are at least 3 games above 500 in quadrant 1 with 0 losses outside of quadrant 1. Even Kansas is only 3-1 in quadrant 1, only 2 games above 500.
Okay.
Purdue and Houston still have incredible resumes. They just had not so great Tuesday nights.
Okay. That's good to know. All right. So the poll chat today was the poll question in the chat today was, which team do you trust most to make the Final Four? And the options were Kansas, Purdue, Houston, and other. I have the results here. Which of those 4? Kansas, Houston, Purdue, other. Which one do you think is leading the poll right now, GP?
Okay,
trust most to make the Final Four.
That word trust is a trigger word because, like, nobody trusts Purdue. Like, we got a whole chat every 3 times a week talking about they don't trust Purdue.
Fair enough.
So there ain't no way nobody's trusting Purdue. So
Okay.
we're picking between Kansas and Houston.
And other. Other is an option. And people that picked other were dropping their teams in the chat.
Yeah,
other. You basically have the field. Kansas, Houston, Purdue, or the field. What do you think is leading?
I trust the field. I'll trust the field because I guarantee the field's going to have a team in the Final Four.
Right, the field, but it's not entirely the field. It's like you got to name your one other team. So it's kind of.
No. I just want the whole field. And
No,
you
it's
can
not
take
the field.
Kansas, Houston, and Purdue, and I'll take the field, and I'm guaranteed to get that 4th spot in the Final Four.
It's not the field. So
no, it's trust. People trust. Here's the thing. You ready for this? People trust Bill Self. They just do.
Correct. Kansas is
I
leading the poll.
I would assume Kansas is leading that.
39% of the vote for Kansas, 27% for Purdue. Houston just at 12%. Other is in third place with 21%. I saw some UConn in there. Actually I saw a lot of UConn in there. I think I trust whatever, man. I feel like I trust Purdue the most of any team. But I'm an idiot. What do you want from me? I mean, they've looked good for most of the season. The resume is strong. They got picked off, and I credit Nebraska. They shot out of their minds. I think I saw Kevin Sweeney from Sports Illustrated tweet this on Tuesday night. On Tuesday, it was the first time since that epic Elite Eight game against Virginia where Purdue made at least 10 3-pointers in a game and lost. So think about how incredible that game was. Purdue nearly won. It was really one of the best tournament games ever. and then it went in to Pinnacle Bank. It didn't walk in, but it got in. It shot well from the floor, but Nebraska was hot as could be, and there we have it. So I would pick Purdue narrowly, but Kansas is the leader in our poll.
Yeah, I would take Kansas. Like, how about this? I said in the preseason Kansas should be number 1. It was. I now have Kansas back at number 1. And in Wednesday's dribble handoff, if I ever get to it, I'm taking Kansas. I think the question is what relative to odds, what team would you like to take to win the national championship? And I believe as of yesterday, Kansas was like plus 1,700. Because again, the computer numbers aren't great with Kansas. I was like, I'll just take them. I get Bill Self and DeJuan Harris and Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough. All right, let's go see what we can do.
Nobody else.
And nobody else. Like, that's the problem. It really is wild. Kansas is maybe the best 4-player team in the history of college basketball. They have 4 players.
Yeah, that's why they're
built like the Phoenix Suns almost. Yeah. They just have you got to put 5 on the court, 13 on a roster, or at least something around there, and they got 4. It's like they've got 3 max players, and then they can't. Yeah. They got to go get a bunch of. They might actually have 3 max players. That might be true.
I think that is exactly the case there.
That's probably true. They have 3 max players at Kansas, and now they've got salary cap issues, so they just had to fill out the roster with whatever they could. And like the key there, I remember we talked about them forever in the preseason. And listen, we're nitpicking here because they're 13-1 and ranked number 1 in the top 25-1. So I saw the other day, I just saw the tweet, but like our friends over at the Field of 68, like the tease was like, is it time to be worried about Kansas? And like,
they say that every single day. How worried are we about this team? What's our level of concern?
Let me tell you what, I ain't worried about any of them.
Exactly. I got to be honest. I'm not worried.
Yeah, none of them have any impact on my life. Exactly. I'm worried about my kid's spelling test on Friday. I ain't worried about no college basketball. I'm way past the days of worried about a college basketball team. Like, whatever happens, I'll be fine. But like we talked about them all preseason, and it was like, buddy, okay, DeJuan Harris, that's one of the best run your team point guards in the country. He's won a national championship. You're good to go there. Kevin McCullough, National Defensive Player of the Year semifinalist, couple years in a row. Big 12 defensive player, all that stuff, legitimate NBA prospect. That's perfect. KJ Adams. Oh, he's breaking through. And then Hunter Dickinson in the middle. What are we even talking about? And at the 2, oh man, they got options. You want to go with the 5-star freshman? Go with the 5-star freshman. Or you want shooting? Well, then they got the transfer from Towson, Nick Timberlake. And the problem is, Marco Jackson, Nick Timberlake, neither one of them have been anything close to what we thought they would be. And so that's how you turn a team that looks like it might have the best starting lineup in the country in the preseason to a team that now looks like it has 4 players.
Best 4-player team in the country. That's that. You'll get no argument from me on that front.
Yeah. I mean, if they ever make basketball a 4-player game, you don't want to deal with it. It's over. It's over. The only reason anybody else has a chance this season is because you got to put a 5th guy on the court.
All right. Can we get to how concerned we are about Cincinnati or what?
How concerned are you with Cincinnati? I'm not concerned at all. What if I went on the Field of 68 and just every time they asked me a question, I was just like, I'm not really concerned. I don't care that much. It doesn't bother me. We'll bounce around some other notable results from Tuesday night next. But first, give me a word from our partners.
Out there are 2 colossal beings, both forces of nature in their own regard. But in here, as soon as the chute bursts open, the duality of man and beast begins to fade. This is PBR on CBS Sports Network.
Happened at Pinnacle Bank and Hilton Coliseum. They ain't the only big things or notable things that happened on Tuesday night. Deadleg, can you run us through some other stuff that happened? You see Max Asmus hit a game winner?
Well, how worried are we about Cincinnati? Can we get into that for real right now? Yeah,
I am actually worried about Cincinnati.
Actually, you know what? I think I've got real concern about Pitt. We'll get to that in just a second. Max Asmus hit a winner to get Texas a little bit of a rabbit out of the hat there. And that was an impressive win for a Texas team. There's a little bit of a theme, something of a trope here on Tuesday night. You had teams that had not yet landed significant resume wins to this point in the season finally get them. We talked about 2 in the A block here, and now we get to the Texas Longhorns, who going into Tuesday night, they claimed mammoth victories over the likes of LSU on a neutral and LSU on a neutral and LSU on a neutral. That was it. The only top 100 win for the Longhorns. They go into Cincinnati.
They banged on one of the 10 best programs of all time.
There we go.
Louisville.
By 1 point.
Hey, man, you take them however you can get them.
Yeah, I was there. I was at that game. And so that was, I believe that was the he tricked me game, by the way, for Kenny Payne. He tricked me.
No, that wasn't it. That wasn't the.
Yeah, it was. Wasn't it?
No, I thought.
What was the he tricked me? I
thought DePaul tricked him.
Maybe DePaul tricked him. Yeah, maybe DePaul.
It was the Louisville.
Indiana. He got tricked by the 4th best team in Indiana.
That's what it was. Yeah. That's how he got tricked. There we go.
He got tricked by the 4th best team in Indiana.
He tricked me. You know what? I'm concerned about Louisville. Can I be honest? I'm pretty worried. I'm worried about Louisville.
Louisville is the one thing I am concerned about.
I'm worried about Louisville.
Genuinely.
I got to be honest. I'm worried about Louisville.
Hey, by the way, on that, assuming that it opens, I heard yesterday, somebody just floated this to me. Like a big name college basketball coach who you wouldn't think would be interested in changing jobs. Somebody said that he's trying to get involved at Louisville.
Are you gonna name the coach or just dropping a blind item here?
It's Mike Krzyzewski.
Okay.
No. No, we'll call it a blind item. It was just when I heard the name, I was like, oh, that would make a lot of sense. I had not assumed that he would be interested in that. But now that I'm thinking about it, I could see him being interested in that.
All right, we'll talk about it off air. I got a couple of potential curiosities on that. Cincinnati had just won at BYU and was in control most of this game until Max Abmas got it done. So that's a significant resume win for Texas, which can now start to build something of a resume because it really didn't have it prior to that. So Abmas, he is now top 20 all time in NCAA Division I scoring. Good for him. Big time bucket. That was a notable one. I can run down the list here and you can kind of take it where you want. But that was the best game of the night, and non-top 2 version that we opened with. Duke destroyed Pitt. It's really bad for Pitt right now. Not even close to anything to an NIT resume, and not rooting for any kind of job change. But you have Duke coming into your house, and you weren't competitive. The game wasn't even as close as the final score indicated. And the final score, what was the final score here? I don't have it on the doc. I'll bring it up right now.
A bunch to a little.
It was a bunch to a little. It finished 75-53. It could have been 77-47. It really could have been. Duke kind of laid off the gas down the stretch there. I wonder if stuff like this really starts to trigger conversations about whether or not they will make a change there in March. Pitt made the tournament last year, only year under Capel. Duke, meantime, it's getting something together here. It's won 7 in a row, and now it's got 2. Weirdly enough, it's got home against Georgia Tech, and then it plays Pitt again. It plays Pitt again in 10 days. So weird wrinkle in the schedule there, but Duke highly likely to be 14-3 because it's going to almost certainly get revenge on its previous loss at Georgia Tech. Remember, that's its most recent defeat. And then it'll get Pitt again. And then it's got at Louisville. So Duke has positioned itself well. The only ranked-on-ranked matchup.
Well, let's stop here for 1 second because I'll tell you, on Sunday when we were discussing Tuesday night could get tricky, I had Duke in there with Houston.
I walked it back. You said I was going to regret it. 0 regrets.
I was more surprised that Duke went to Pitt and blasted them like that than I was that Houston lost at Iowa State or Purdue. I thought it was surprising that Houston or Purdue.
Yeah, I think the nature of the score, I would agree with you on that because, I thought Purdue would win at Nebraska. Obviously, that's been covered. I thought Iowa State had a healthy chance of beating Houston, but, I had the whole YouTube TV multi-view thing going. So I had the Duke game up the whole time and just wasn't interesting remotely. Credit to Duke for just going in and kicking ass, but yeah, Pitt fans are no doubt gripping right now. They're extremely concerned. How about that? They're
and,
very
and for that dribble handoff, like I'm going to go with Kansas, but another one I considered was Duke. I mean, they were among the favorites in the preseason to win it all, and they've been a little uneven through this season, though they won 12 of their first 15. But they're starting to look, now it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 game winning streak with a 22-point win at Pitt. They're starting to look like the team we all thought they would be in the preseason.
They are, and they were. I mean, listen, they had that game against Baylor, and at the time, before that game, Duke was 7-3 without a notable win on the schedule. Michigan State kind of qualified, and I was prepared to write a column that night if it had lost to Baylor that this was going to be the first true crossroads of crisis in John Shire's young career, because Duke would have been 7-4 and heading into ACC play like really behind the 8 ball. Didn't happen. They beat Baylor definitively, and they have not lost since, and now they are well positioned. Elsewhere on Tuesday night, ranked unranked, BYU goes to Baylor and loses. BYU is now 0-2 in the Big 12. Cue life in the Big 12 for the newbies there. Baylor, held itself well. Baylor is the lead item, and its new home court venue, its new home arena. That's going to lead today's court report there. I thought it was a big win for Baylor to get to 13-2. It's 2-0 in the Big 12. This remains the best three-point shooting team in the country. On Tuesday night, Baylor was able to sink 10 of them, shot 44% from beyond the arc there, and was able to outpace BYU, which loves to launch early and often. Jalen Bridges was tremendous. He took a tough hit. He still composed himself. And between Bridges, Jacoby Walter had a nice couple of baskets, and Langston Love, there was a lot on display there with Baylor's capability. I liked what I saw.
Let me ask you, because I saw this in the chat, and it's something we were talking about in studio last night.
Okay.
Have you noticed the camera angle at Baylor's new arena?
Yeah. So I posted this on Tuesday night over at over on Blue Sky. You're not on Blue Sky yet, are you, GP?
I'm not. I don't have enough things to look at. I scroll in. I'm on Twitter, of course, X, and then I have a Facebook account because I'm old, and then I have TikTok, but I don't post. I just scroll. Sometimes I like to look at what they're doing on TikTok. Yeah. And then I've got Instagram, but I can't do it.
Yeah. I'm not. I
don't think I can do any more than that. I think that's as much as I can do.
You can be done. If you are listening and are on Blue Sky, you can come over and find me there. I offer up a bit more commentary on college hoops over there. So I posted that the perch of the camera, it's rivaling. Well, here we go. I said one school in particular, but there's another one. Baylor, that camera angle, that's a steep one. What are the two other really steep high major camera angles in the sport that come to mind? Don't check the chat, because I'm sure they're going to give it to you. One's kind of easy, one might not be. You don't see the team on television a lot. Steep camera angles, high major venues.
I saw it in the chat, but it does pop out. Is it Gallagher-Iba?
Gallagher-Iba is definitely one of them.
I feel like I remember when Durant had like an awesome game there or something. Yeah. There were people in the way of the it was all weird. There was something like people in the way of the cameras, and I don't know. I just have a memory of like something weird. Oklahoma State did pop into my head. People
are in the chat are saying Indiana and Duke. I wouldn't say those are the same. I think it's Gallagher-Iba, now Foster Pavilion. And I got a thought on this as well. And then I think Clemson, Little John, that camera, it's high and it's a steep angle there. I couldn't help but notice that the court in Baylor's new building, what are we doing here? Did you listen, you've got Scott Drew patrolling the sidelines. Mm-hmm. And I would just assume that you build he basically built this thing. Okay. I'm giving him credit for the blueprints, the architecture, the funding, and all of it. Okay. And yet all respect to Mark and Paula Hurd, but it is Mark and Paula Hurd floor. How are we not naming this court after Scott Drew?
I can't speak to that.
And I know that Kim Mulkey won a hell of a lot there for Baylor as well. She's no longer there. I don't think it was the friendliest of splits as it is. Scott Drew is still there. I don't know if he'll end his career there. He brought Baylor to a national championship. At minimum, Scott Drew floor, hashtag Huck and stay. That's what I say.
I think it's got to be Scott Drew floor, hashtag Huck.
Just Huck?
Yeah, just Huck.
So
Just-
actually, you know what? That's a good point because if you look at the sidelines here, they've got hashtag Sick'em. They need to have hashtag Sick'em and then right next to it hashtag Huck.
it looked like we were watching an all 22.
I know.
And here's the thing, though. I don't know if you know, I work in television a little bit, and one of the things I learned about cameras is that you can zoom them in. These cameras not have zoom on them.
I know. I think it's they're trying to split the distance with seeing the whole floor. You zoom it in, you're not gonna have certain angles. I don't know.
It just seems like that's something you could figure out.
Yeah,
I'd feel like I'd get me 3 fellas in there. We could probably figure out how to make that better. Is that something? Because sometimes, and this is true, building it like in my home, there are things that I hate. I didn't build my home. We bought our home new.
What?
I don't even assemble.
Wait, start over.
I don't even assemble Christmas presents. So
I didn't build my home. Really?
I mean, I didn't design my home. Obviously, I didn't put hammer.
Do you own a single hammer? No.
Of course I do.
Can you identify a Phillips screwdriver? Doubt.
Oh, yeah, I know Phillips. Those are the ones. I know the difference between a Phillips and a flathead. Why is it always easier to find a flathead than a Phillips head?
I haven't encountered this.
Oh man, buddy, if I had a,
you seem to be indicating that you go searching to hold such a screwdriver, which nobody on this podcast believes.
Yeah, every once in a while, your kids want you to put batteries in something, and your present assembler isn't around.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, all right, find me a
pay someone to open this remote control. Yeah, exactly.
Man, I got 10 flatheads for every Phillips head I got. I got so many flatheads, I can't ever find a Phillips head. See, I should just go to Amazon, buy me a Phillips head, and like put it in my computer bag, just carry it around with me all the time.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
Yeah, I know about Phillips heads, and so I didn't build my house, but here's my point.
And we're back on this. Okay.
There are things about my house that drive me crazy. The pantry's too small. Like, you should not have a house that looks like my house with a pantry the size of my pantry. Somebody just did that wrong. And then there's like the fireplace is slightly off-centered between 2 things, and it's just enough. I promise you, nobody has ever walked in my house and noticed it other than me, but it drives me crazy. Here's the point.
How have you not moved yet?
I'm thinking about it. Yeah. All right. So here's the deal. When you build something, these things don't, and then you see it and you're like, oh, I wish I'd have built this differently. That's what's going on at Foster Pavilion right now. They got to figure out that camera situation. It's like their pantry.
Okay. It doesn't bother me that much. It's just a steeper angle. Building looks incredible.
It doesn't bother me that much. It's just noticeably different than what we're used to seeing.
Yeah, that's true. It's like when I watch my Bears games, the sight line for the camera at Soldier Field is lower than most others, and I don't like the way it looks. It makes the field look smaller. But I hear you. I hear it on the whole way on this. Elsewhere on Tuesday night, how concerned are we about Colorado State? Should we be worried about the Rams? They lost 65-58.
I couldn't even sleep last night.
They lost. They're on a 2-game. They're on a 2-game
skid. I said losing skid like 3 times last night on television.
That's what I want to hear. 2-game skid for the Colorado State Rams after the Boise State Broncos got a big win. Boise State has 1 loss since Thanksgiving weekend. 11-4 overall. More work to do. But in the preseason, you sold heavily on the idea that the Mountain West would get anything more than 3 teams.
What?
Yes. I don't have the audio, but I assure you so because you picked like 4 total bids from outside the Big 6 conferences. Mountain West alone might get 5 here. That was a big time victory for Leon Rice's Boise State Broncos there. New Mexico took a loss against UNLV, so we'll see how these things balance out going forward. Regardless, notable win there. Congratulations to Boise State to getting that done. And then Auburn, at least mention the Tigers here, building itself a top 5 resume at this point. The Tigers sit at 13-2, haven't lost since December 3rd. The losses are against Baylor and against Appalachian State in that road game. And we had a mailbag question that asked, why Auburn hadn't cracked into the rankings, and we explained that on that mailbag episode. Now, of course, they're ranked, was able to beat Texas A&M and sit at 13-2 overall, 2-0 in the SEC, 4th at Ken Palm. And Bruce Pearl has a damn good team. Janai Broom is fourth in the Ken Palm Player of the Year standings. Edie Filipowski, Jaden Liddy at San Diego State, and then Janai Broom are the top 4 players right now. So credit to Auburn for semi-quietly building out something pretty strong here. That won't last too much longer here. It's Bruce Pearl. That arena is one of the best in the SEC, obviously. And they've got a couple of nondescript opponents upcoming. So they don't have a high-profile game on the slate until the roadie against Alabama in 2 weeks. They got LSU, Vandy, and then Ole Miss coming up next, but at least wanted to mention the Tigers and what they're doing. They have exceeded preseason expectations.
All right. Before we get out of here, we'll look ahead to the next couple of nights, tell you what's on the schedule. But first, one more word from our partners.
Like a flying arrow. You with me? Absolutely on the money. Full speed here. We're racing. Oh, that was tight. Gotta go. And we are on. Let's gotta get to the finish line here, guys. And now the party can really begin. Well done, guys.
All right, Deadline, let's keep an eye on this clock. But looking ahead to
you got your show in like 9 minutes, don't you?
Yes. On Wednesday night,
You're the screwdriver talk, okay? How concerned am I that you're not going to be able to make this? I got a lot of worry. Go ahead.
Man, I'm gonna send you a picture of my pantry. It's outrageous. Tonight, I'm gonna be in studio CBS Sports Network. We got Inside College Basketball at 6:30 Eastern, then 7 Eastern, St. Joe's, St. Louis, 9 Eastern, Butler at number 11 Marquette. We'll wrap it up with Inside College Basketball at the end of the night. Elsewhere, number 3 Kansas at UCF, number 5 Tennessee at Mississippi State, number 7 North Carolina at NC State, number 9 Oklahoma at TCU, number 15 Wisconsin at Ohio State. That's pretty good schedule, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking about what else you didn't drop in there. Did you mention Providence at St. John's? That's got a little spice to it. That's a good one for Wednesday night. UNC plays at NC State. This is a wowzer. UNC and NC State are both 3-0 in ACC play. It's the first time since let me make sure I got this exact date right. This is unbelievable. Carolina and NC State have not met when both were at least 3-0 or better in league play since 1974. It's only the 4th time ever they'll meet with at least a 3-0 or better record, having not lost a game in ACC play. So that's an intriguing one and a good opportunity for NC State. Indiana State at Drake is my game of the night because I don't think the Valley is going to be a 2-bid league, but it's not out of the question if both of these teams take care of their business against all of their opponents in the league. Well, they got to do it. So it's a tough ask. Drake needs to win at home against Indiana State, though. So that's a fairly big MVC battle there overall. But yeah, it's a quality night. Florida plays at Ole Miss as well. Ole Miss started out undefeated and recently took on his first loss. Metrics weren't buying in. That's a pretty big one for the Rebels there. So yeah, Wednesday night is a pretty packed night. GP, as he said, will be on Inside College Basketball, CBS Sports Network, and then I will be on HQ a couple of times tonight, recapping some stuff as well. As for Thursday, not that heavy on the slate. I'd say the 3 biggest games for Thursday are Michigan State at Illinois. Obviously, that is a really, really big one for Michigan State. Illinois still doesn't have Terrence Shannon Jr. You've got FAU at Tulane.
Mm-hmm.
Owls on the road. They lose that one. Owls lose that one. We might have to open the Friday show with Dusty May's program there. We'll see. And then Gonzaga plays at Santa Clara, which I would think Gonzaga is going to win, but this is not a top 10 Gonzaga team. Santa Clara has been a quality WCC club, and they get that game in their backyard. So just one to keep an eye on for Thursday. A quality next couple of days. No ranked on ranked matchups. Only 2 this week. We had Baylor BYU on Tuesday night. And then Kansas, Oklahoma this week is the only ranked on ranked matchups we have on the schedule. But that's our next 2 nights.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry M.F. and Teagle. Legend. Name the court after him. If
I mean, if you're going to name the court after him, you might as well just name the court after us. Like, let's be real.
Name the court after us. Why wouldn't Baylor name its court after us?
Yeah.
What if it actually said Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander court?
Tell you what, they might go #Huck. They're not going #more of us. I know that's not going to happen down there.
Yeah, that's a big ask.
It's a big ask. Yeah.
I feel like Scott would do anything for us, but I don't know if he'd do that. But he won't. He's a little bit like Meatloaf.
Yeah,
exactly.
A
little bit like Meatloaf. Shouts to Huck. Shouts to Larnell. Thank you for listening and watching the Eye on College Basketball podcast. If you're not subscribed, go subscribe anywhere.
I had a question for you.
Great.
How concerned are we about Texas A&M right now?
Pretty. I mean, kind of.
Should we be? Should we be worried about Marquette?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
We
I think
poke
so.
because we love.
I think so. There's a lot of stuff to worry about out there. My anxiety's through the roof with these college basketball teams. I'm just worried.
What's our level of anxiety right now with Florida Atlantic?
Oh, man, through the roof. Man, buddy, get me a prescription or else I don't think I'm going to make it. You know, get me a prescription. Call in a prescription. I don't think I can get through this. More of us than there are of them. That's got to be reflected in the comments. We'll talk to you again on Friday morning. Till then, take care.